Tanisha, over to you. On mute. As I said before, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us to join Every Story Sri Lanka in launching the first phase of Stories of Sri Lankan Women. My name is Sharanya Sekram. I will be walking you through this launch this afternoon, and I'm also the co-founder of Every Story Sri Lanka. We are a young feminist storytelling and knowledge creation organization and collective. We are formed for, by, and with Sri Lankan women. Our goal is really to find the joy in celebrating women's stories, women's lives, in pushing back against the stories and the mainstream ideas that are shared with us, and also in bringing knowledge to those who understand that knowledge and resistance show up in different ways. They exist in different ways. And that is the core of what we do at Every Story Sri Lanka. Today, we are launching a piece of work that is incredibly dear to our heart, and it really is our flagship piece of work. It embodies our values, our mission, and our vision in a multitude of ways. Stories of Sri Lankan Women is an archival and history-telling and storytelling endeavor, which intends to create a publicly accessible archive of Sri Lankan women's stories across the last 100 years. We want to understand the life cycle of stories that women hold. Through these stories, we look to peel back layers of resistance and add a depth of understanding, especially into the particular context in which these stories take place. So today we are sharing the first 30 stories of the many, many, many stories we are currently collecting, have been collecting, and will continue to collect in the time to come. What Stories of Sri Lankan Women was really born out of was a realization last year that there were so many women in Sri Lankan history in the last century and the current century whose work and lives have shaped, but also have been shaped by our political, our social, our cultural contexts and trajectories. In these women's stories lay how our history has moved us, lay untold realizations about our political context, and lay so much depth and wonder that we began to wonder why these stories weren't screamed from the rooftops, why they weren't in textbooks, why they weren't told to children as bedtime stories. How do our children grow up knowing the stories of Florence Nightingale or Amelia Earhart as they should, but not the stories of Sri Lankan women? So that's really where this work lies. It lies both as a historical endeavor, an archival endeavor, but also as an endeavor to bring to the forefront these silent, often silent champions who we sometimes make a song and dance about for maybe 2 weeks, and then they get lost in the annals of history. So this is really where we are. Today, we are so, so excited and emotional and thrilled to share with you and take out of our team and into the rest of the world these first 30 stories. Before I hand over to my incredible colleagues who will do this brief in Sinhala and Tamil, just a couple of things we want to say. First is we are so indebted to the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who saw the value of this work and who sponsored all 30 of these stories. A really important feminist principle for us is paying for work. is ensuring we don't harvest free labor from people, particularly also young women who are told, you need to do this for your CV. This is a good opportunity. This is exposure. Exposure doesn't always pay bills. So we are so thankful to the Kingdom of the Netherlands, who was able to give us funding for this project and allow us to pay every single person, every single woman who was a part of this work. So thank you so much. I also just want to honor, because they won't do this themselves, I want to honor Abhilesha Sega, and who is a project manager for this project, and the incredible Every Story team, who are brilliant, diverse, phenomenal women in their own right, and without whom this amazing piece of work wouldn't have even been thought of, much less done. And of course, I know everyone does thank yous at last, but I believe, we need to raise these people in the beginning. And then of course, the external team of researchers, writers, illustrators, translators, editors, transcribe all these million tiny pieces of work that don't get often seen when we see the final product. And of course, to the women themselves, thank you for opening your heart, your homes, your stories, your lives to us so generously, so openly. So many of you showed us that there is so much strength in vulnerability, and you were truly vulnerable, beautifully vulnerable with us. So thank you for honoring us and giving us your stories with such care and love to tell and to share. And we hope we honor you in how we share and tell these stories. So on that note, I'm going to introduce to you Abhilesha, who is going to do the Tamil brief. As much as possible, we try to keep most of our work trilingual. We don't want it to remain only in the English space. So Abhilesha is going to do the Tamil brief. She's currently the program manager at Every Story Sri Lanka and the project manager for Stories of Sri Lankan Women. She holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Colombo. She also moonlights as a Tamil compere, moderator, and voice artist. And most importantly to her, she is the mother of a wonderful toddler who has yet to miss any Every Story meeting that she attends. Abhi, over to you.
Thank you, Sharanya. அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். எவ்ரி ஸ்டோரி ஸ்ரீலங்காவினுடைய இலங்கை பெண்களினுடைய இந்த கதைகள் திட்ட வெளியீட்டிற்காக எங்களோடு இணைந்திருக்கின்ற உங்கள் அனைவரையும் நாங்கள் அன்போடு வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கின்றோம். 2018 ஆண்டு நிறுவப்பட்ட எவ்ரி ஸ்டோரி ஸ்ரீலங்கா கதை சொல்லலினையும் அறிவு பகிர்வினையும் நோக்காக கொண்ட இளம்பெண்ணியவாதிகளின் ஒரு குழுவாகும். தற்போது நாம் இளம்பெண்ணிய வலையமைப்பு, வெளிநபர்களை உள்ளடக்கிய நிகழ்வுகள், வளப்பகிர்வு, எதிர்ப்பு கதைகள் திட்டம் மற்றும் இலங்கை பெண்களின் கதைகள் போன்ற பல செயற்பாடுகளில் ஈடுபட்டு வருகின்றோம். இவற்றில் இலங்கை பெண்களின் கதைகள் என்பது எங்களுடைய பரந்த எதிர்பார்ப்பு மற்றும் நோக்கத்தை உள்ளடக்கிய எங்களுடைய முதன்மையான திட்டங்களில் ஒன்று. இந்த திட்டத்தின் மூலம் எங்களுடைய வரலாற்றில், அதாவது நடைமுறை வரலாற்றினையும் இணைத்து வெவ்வேறு வழிகளில் ஆணாதிக்க கட்டமைப்புகளை எதிர்த்த மற்றும் நம் அனைவரையும் பல்வேறு வழிகளில் ஊக்கப்படுத்தக்கூடிய பெண்களினுடைய கதைகளை நாங்கள் முன்னிலைப்படுத்துகின்றோம். இந்த செயல் திட்டத்தின் மூலமாக கடந்த 100 ஆண்டுகளில் வாழ்ந்த இலங்கை பெண்களின் கதைகளை ஆவணப்படுத்தி அனைவரும் அணுகக்கூடிய காப்பகத்தை உருவாக்க முற்படுகின்றோம். இந்த கதைகள் மூலம் எதிர்ப்பின் அடுக்குகளை தோலுரித்து அவை நடந்த குறிப்பிட்ட சூழலை பற்றிய ஒரு ஆழமான புரிதலை உருவாக்குவோம் என நாங்கள் நம்புகின்றோம். கடந்த காலங்களில் நெதர்லாந்து ராட்சி தூதரகத்தினுடைய நிதியுதவியுடன் இலங்கையை சேர்ந்த 30 பெண்களின் கதைகளை சேர்க்கும் பணியில் நாங்கள் ஈடுபட்டிருந்தோம். அந்த வகையில் தங்களுடைய வாழ்க்கை, செயற்பாடுகள், அனுபவம் என்பன நம் சமூக, அரசியல் மற்றும் கலாசார சூழல்களால் வடிவமைக்கப்பட்ட அதே வேளை அவற்றின் மீது தாக்கம் செலுத்தியவையாகவும் அமைந்துள்ள பெண்களின் கதைகளையே இதில் நாங்கள் உள்ளடக்கியுள்ளோம். இந்த செயற்பாடானது நாம் தொடர்ச்சியாக செய்ய எதிர்பார்த்திருக்கும் எங்களுடைய செயற்பாடுகளினுடைய முதற்கட்டம் மட்டுமே. எம்முடைய இந்த கன்னி முயற்சியாக சேகரிக்கப்பட்ட 30 கதைகளை வெளியிடுவதில் நாங்கள் மிக மகிழ்ச்சி அடைவதோடு மீண்டும் ஒரு முறை எங்களோடு இணைந்திருக்கின்ற உங்கள் அனைவரையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்றுக் கொள்கின்றோம். ஷரா, over to you.
Nandri Abhi. We're going to now pass on to our Sinhala brief, which is coming from Rachitra Sandanayake. Rachitra is the finance and admin manager of Every Story Sri Lanka. That is merely her official title. She is also holder of this entire team and a backbone to all of us and all of the work that we do. She also was the original coordinator of the Young Feminist Network that Every Story Sri Lanka runs, and a music and theatre enthusiast who also has a love for number crunching and a fascination of the willingness of the younger generation to learn about sensitive topics. Rachitra's work at Every Story Sri Lanka, which works on highlighting alternate or marginalized narratives, fits in perfectly with her passions. Over to you, Rachi.
ස්තුතියි ශාර්ණ්‍ය. ආයිබෝවන් ඔබ සැමට ESSL සමූහය වෙනුවෙන් ඔබ සෑම දෙනාම සාදරයෙන් පිළිගනු ලබනවා. ESSL සමූහය පිළිබඳ සහ අපගේ දැනට සිදු කරන්නා වූ ව්‍යාපෘති සහ වැඩසටහන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් කෙටි හැඳින්වීමක් ලබා දෙන්න මම කැමතියි. ESSL ස්ත්‍රීවාදී සමූහය පිහිටවනු ලැබුවේ 2018 වර්ෂයේදී. අපගේ සමූහයේ ප්‍රධානම අරමුණ වෙන්නේ ශ්‍රී ලංකාව පාදක කොටගත් කතාවස්තුන් ප්‍රකාශනය කිරීම සහ දැනුම බෙදා ගැනීමයි. අපි දැනට සමූහය තුළ වැඩ කටයුතු කිහිපයකම නියැලී සිටිනවා. උදාහරණයක් වශයෙන් තරුණ ස්ත්‍රීවාදී ජාලය, Young Feminist Network, ඒ වගේම ශ්‍රී ලාංකික කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතා එකතුව Stories of Sri Lankan Women ව්‍යාපෘතිය ප්‍රචාරණ කටයුතු මගින් සම්පත් බෙදා ගැනීම, විවිධ වූ ප්‍රකාශන කටයුතු සහ දකුණු ආසියානු කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතා එකතුව එමත් නැත්නම් Resistance Stories ව්‍යාපෘතිය ඉන් කිහිපයක් වෙනවා. එතකොට මේ ශ්‍රී ලාංකික කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතා එකතුව එහෙමත් නැත්නම් Stories of Sri Lankan Women කියන මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය අපගේ විශ්වාසයන් සහ අරමුණු තර කරන්නා වූ ප්‍රමුඛ වැඩසටහනයි. මෙමගින් අපගේ ජීවන ඉතිහාසයේ අනුභවලත් චරිත සහ පීතෘමූලික ව්‍යුහයන්ට විවිධාකාරයෙන් බාධකයන් එමත් නැත්නම් බලවේග දැක් වූ කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතා ප්‍රකාශයට පත් කරන එක තමයි අපේ ප්‍රධානම අරමුණ වෙන්නේ. මේ කතාවල ජීවිකාව අවබෝධ කර ගැනීම සඳහා පසුගිය වසර 100ක් පුරාවටම ශ්‍රී ලාංකික කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතාවන් පිළිබඳව සංක්ෂිප්ත සහ ප්‍රසිද්ධියේ ප්‍රවේශ විය හැකි ලේඛනාගාරයක් නිර්මාණය කිරීම මේ වැඩසටහනේ දිගු කාලීන ඉලක්කය වෙනවා. මේ කතන්දර තුලින් බාධකවල විවිධ වූ ස්තරයන් ඉතා ගැඹුරින් අවබෝධ කර ගැනීමටත් අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය අප විසින් අඛණ්ඩව පවත්වාගෙන යන එකක්. එතකොට මේ අධීරය අපිට නෙදර්ලන්තය රාජධානියේ තානාපති කාර්යාලයෙන් ලැබුණු අරමුදල් ආධාරයෙන් අපගේ සමාජ දේශපාලන ව්‍යුහයන්ට අනුව හැඩගැසුණු විවිධ අංශ නියෝජනය කරන කාන්තාවන් 30 දෙනෙක්ගේ කතා එකතු කිරීමට තමයි අපි කටයුතු කරේ. එතකොට ඉදිරි කාලයේදී තවත් මෙවැනි ඇදහිය නොහැකි ශ්‍රී ලාංකික කතන්දර ශ්‍රී ලාංකික කාන්තාවන්ගේ කතන්දර හැකිතරම් එකතු කරලා ඔබ වෙත එය ප්‍රකාශනය කිරීමට තමයි ESSL සමූහයේ අපි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. මේ තියෙන අපගේ පළමුවන කතා 30 එය අද අපි එළි දක්වන බව නිවේදනය කිරීම ගැන අපි ඒ කියන්නේ ESSL සමූහයේ සිටින අපි සෑමදෙනාම ඉතාමත් සතුටට සහ ඉමහත් උද්‍යෝගයකට පත් වෙනවා. ඒ අතර මේ අවස්ථාව වෙනුවෙන් ඔබ අපහා එක්කු සෑම දෙනාම ඉතාමත් ආදරයෙන් සහ ගෞරවයෙන් පිළිගනු ලබනවා. Back to you, Shara.
Thank you so much, Rachitra. As you can see, these dynamic and brilliant women have held this work and this moment with such care and love. And really, when we talk about feminism, we often talk about transnational feminist solidarity. And that really came through when we met Ambassador Tanya Gongrip, who heard about our work in the most random way. It's a whole story we don't want to go into. But when she approached us and when we had our first conversation, there was something where we knew we had found an ally. But little did we know how much of an ally. Without the support, without her support personally, the support of her staff and the support of the embassy, this work may not be what it is. It may not be what you're seeing here today. So it is my absolute pleasure, Ambassador, to invite you to speak to us. I'm just going to do a very, very quick introduction. The ambassador of Tanya Gongrip is the ambassador of the Kingdom of Netherlands to Sri Lanka and the Maldives. In this position, she pays special attention to cultural heritage, sustainable production, trade, and the empowerment of women. She's been working in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs since 2004, fulfilling different positions. And before moving to Sri Lanka, was a member of the management team of the Department of Sustainable Economic Development. Earlier, she was, amongst others, senior advisor to the Director General International Corporation and worked with the Netherlands Embassy in Senegal. She started her career in the Klingdoll Institute for International Relations. Ambassador, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sharanya. It's actually my honor and pleasure to join you here. And I'm also very excited to be here. And there are many moments in the past 1.5 years that I would have wished not to be behind the screen in a room and telling my children to be quiet in the background because I'm going to speak, but actually to be in a room together. But this time I really sort of miss meeting you all and being able to say hello, have some small talk before we start, seeing new faces, meeting new people. That is really something I feel I miss, and I hope we can make up for this, because I see there are a lot of very interesting and amazing women in this call, and it would have been so good not to just see you on the screen, but be able to engage and talk to you all. Thank you so much. A bit of too much honor. I mean, you had a great idea, and we have the means to support this idea, but we don't just do that. So in that sense, you had a really good idea. We do not just support any idea. And why did we support this idea? Because we feel that stories are very important. Story creating and storytelling is hugely important. Stories have a magic. Stories create different worlds, emotions and ideas that people can relate to. Maybe they recognize themselves in the story, or they don't recognize themselves in the story. Maybe they get inspired or encouraged. And telling a story is also very important. It can be also inspiring. It can be healing. It can be insightful to actually share your own story with others. And I would just like to share a very short story with you. It's unfortunately not about a Sri Lankan woman, but I would like to go back to the 15th century before Christ with you, to a lady called Hatshepsut. It's a very difficult name, and I wonder whether you would recognize it. This lady, Hatshepsut, and that's a very Dutch pronunciation of the name, I'm sure, was a lady, as I said, in the 15th century before Christ, and she was one of the few female pharaohs in Egypt, and she was actually the first female pharaoh. And it's a very interesting story because she came to power when her husband died. Well, that's a story that you might relate to in Sri Lanka. And she was supposed to be a pharaoh only temporarily until her stepson would be old enough to take over. But she did an efficient job and she liked the job, so she stayed in the job and she never handed over the power to her stepson. Her stepson was not very happy with that. And she was in power for 22 years. And she became a very powerful pharaoh. And the interesting part is that she was depicted in all kinds of images as a man with a beard and a male pharaoh crown. And we would say she was depicted as a man, but we should actually say she was depicted and imaged as a pharaoh. She needed to look like a pharaoh, and the image people had of a pharaoh, and she couldn't sort of move away too far from that. And isn't that what we often do? That we try to fit into existing ideas, existing stereotypes, existing structures that might be partly culturally, but are often broader and international on how we should act. And whether this is about gender or something else, but we're now talking about Sri Lankan women. So I'll take the gender angle, and even how often I sort of see myself fitting into a certain picture of that exists of the ambassador. You might be able to understand that I encounter that every now and then. That still, I'm not regarded as the ambassador. And when I arrive at some event, and it has been a while, but let's hope we will have that more often soon again. Mostly people start talking to my husband because they think that he is the ambassador, and then my husband is always happy to refer the interlocutors to me. But it can also be different. My sister was also an ambassador, and in Costa Rica, and her son one day asked her, "Can men also be ambassadors?" So it's clear that this is not something that is set in our minds or that is part of you when you are born. This is something that becomes part of us because of the culture we live in, the day-to-day experiences that we have, and the stereotypes that we live by. And I think that is what it is. And that is also important, that these are often stereotypes. And the interesting detail about the story about Hatshepsut, the pharaoh, is that we didn't find a lot of information about her after that. So all the memories about her were erased, probably by her stepson, who had not been very happy about her taking over the power. But also the statues and everything that she built was also destroyed. So only centuries later, archaeologists found out that she was the lady pharaoh that have been part of the historical stories that have been told. But it wasn't until then that they found out that she was actually this very powerful pharaoh, but nobody wanted it to be known that it was a woman. So that having said, I think it is important that we understand that these stereotypes are here, but we don't have to accept them. And this is why this initiative is so important. We have to try to not use the beard or the male crown to make our point, but be the persons we are, whether this is about women, whether it is about religious backgrounds or ethnical backgrounds. We are here, and we are the persons we are, and we can present ourselves as ourselves. And it is so important that the next generation actually gets this message and can also relate to other women or other examples or people in their lives. Because if you cannot relate to other female ambassadors or other female pharaohs or other female politicians or other female artists, how can you sort of see yourself as being one? And I feel that is so important. So this is the short story about why we are supporting this very important initiative, because I have been here for 2 years now, and unfortunately have been very limited in my movements. But even in those limitations, within those limitations, I've met, I don't know how many very interesting, amazing Sri Lankan women. Many of you on screen, but luckily also many face to face. And I'm really, I'm so encouraged and thrilled to hear stories when I talk to you, and also when I saw some samples of the stories. Some of these women that were interviewed, I've had the luck to already and honor to already meet them and hear their stories. These are very brave and strong women, and often the interesting part is they don't see themselves that way. They don't sort of realize how brave and strong they are and how important they are for other women and men and boys and girls. This is so important. So I'm just looking forward to, in the coming 2 years that I hope to still be ambassador here, to meet all the women in your stories. And I'm going to sort of make this how do you say that, a goal to reach within these 2 years. And I really see this as a huge encouragement. And also the way you work, I have to say that working with other women and actually recognizing their professionalism and paying them for that is very important. Another discussion I won't go into because I was only going to talk very shortly, but I can go on and on about this. When I speak to groups of women, I often say one message, and I would like to conclude with that. Often it's related to female entrepreneurship, and then I said a country cannot reach its full potential if not everybody is part of the development of the country. And everybody, again, I say this is about gender, but this is also about religion. This is also about ethnicity. And today I would like to say that a country cannot reach its full potential if not everybody feels part of the past, present, and future of the country. And stories and sharing these stories are hugely important. So I would like to thank you, Sharanya, and your organization, all the women who participated for this great initiative, because I'm the one being honored and excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I think you said it perfectly when you said we must not try to use the male crown or the male beard. And that's exactly what we hope all of you will see when you see these stories and you read them and you hear about these women, is that these women are celebrated for who they are. They're not trying to be men. We're not trying for men and women to be the same. That's not been the goal of feminism. It never has been. It's about allowing each individual, regardless of gender, class, caste, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, privilege, whatever it may be, to be their full authentic selves, to be who they truly are, and not have systemic institutional, cultural barriers stand in their way of what they want to choose, to really choose with all of the freedom of that choice. And as we said, not just the women we're featuring in these 30, but the women we are currently interviewing are going to continue to feature. All of them have told us and shown us and displayed this in so many ways. And so we're so incredibly excited now to give you a very small glimpse into the incredible women being featured over the next few weeks. We will put up our social media profiles at the end of the launch for you to follow. We'll also email links across to all of you. Please keep an eye out, because these stories are going to be rolled out one by one for you to savor all of them in their full glory. But for now, here is the official glimpse into the first 30 stories of Sri Lankan women. As you would have got a very brief glimpse, these are women that cut across. We've captured trade unionists, politicians, businesswomen, artists. We've captured a dirt bike racer. We've captured we've captured young at heart. We've captured women who have come up in different ways, in different places, at different points in history. Just a little note about how challenging it was to kind of land on these first 30 is that we wanted a diversity of experiences, a diversity of kinds of stories. This barely begins to even scratch the surface of our wider list, and even the interviews we have even completed at this stage that we're continuing to turn into these stories one by one. For this particular stage, we focused on women who, as we said, are with us in body. The next stage will focus on women who are no longer with us physically. And we also have chosen specifically for this work to focus on women who are living and working in Sri Lanka. As much as we acknowledge and understand and appreciate the women of our diaspora who have gone on to achieve phenomenal and wonderful things, we also particularly wanted to create something that shows young children that you don't always have to leave to make a change. You don't always have to be somewhere else, and that you can be here and you can change the trajectory and the history of this country and for generations. So on that note, I'm now going to move on to what is our last address. Well, no, it's our second before last address, but it's from Shruti Matthews, who is representing the team of women who came together. Just before I introduce Shruti and I hand it over to her, I wanted to sort of refresh what I said in the beginning, is that for us, doing this work is not just about producing work that is feminist, but producing it in a way that is feminist. And for us, we were so proud to have this enormously talented, phenomenal, diverse, and incredible team of external supporters who came together. Writers like Shruti, illustrators, animators, editors, they were from across the country. They were from Puttlam, Kandy. Some of them are Sinhala journalists. Some of them have written have never written in this way before. Some were doing interviews for the first time, some were veterans. So it was really, really special to bring this group of women together. But we wanted you to hear from one of them on what it was like to be a part of this work, what it meant to come onto this team and work on this. So I'm just going to take this moment to introduce Shruti Matthews, who's with us. Shruti is currently an online graduate student at Johns Hopkins University. She's studying liberal arts. She was a co-founder of the food review site Yamu and covered arts for the Hindu newspaper in Chennai. She's a graduate of University College London and a mother of two. Shruti, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sharanya, for the introduction. And thank you, Ambassador, for your inspiring words. I hope everyone can hear me. Can you hear me? Okay, cool. It's so nice to see these lives come together with the pictures. And yes, so I had the privilege of being an interviewer and writer for the Every Story project. And for this, I had to be a specific type of storyteller, because the Every Story project brought together a group of Sri Lankans who identify as women, such as myself, to be, in a sense, mediums for the untold stories of other Sri Lankan women. We were given the task of really stitching stories from the fabric of lives to embroider them, I hope, into the broader tapestry of collective awareness of our history and of our present. And these are the stories of lives that have resisted and continue to resist structures of power and inequity in diverse, but also shared ways. And you may not find these stories in newspapers or on screens or even in history books, but they are stories that you will probably recognize, through patterns that may resonate with your own experiences or those of your grandmother or a mother, or perhaps another relative. And the Every Story project, as I see it, issues a challenge to dominant narratives that highlight the stories of men. These are the dominant narratives that have cast a historically long shadow over the meaningful existence and contributions of women, a shadow over mothers, daughters, sisters, and their various struggles and acts of resistance. a shadow over meaningful work and profound acts of care. We live these stories, we live with them, but how come we don't hear them in the same way we hear stories and histories of great men? And what does it really mean to be great? I had the privilege of being invited into the private worlds and memories of some of the women we spoke to. And I saw that it's pretty great to support your family. It's pretty great to open your home to children who don't have one. It's pretty great to be all those things that women keep choosing to be, even when life makes it pretty hard to make those choices. And it's really, really great to hear the different sides to a different story. It's really been a privilege to be a small part of the Every Story project, which really weaves this narrative web of lives by threading through the common points in lived stories, through the connecting nodes of allyship, of struggle, of resistance, of being Sri Lankan and a woman. So thank you to Every Story for trying to pull these threads into a broader patchwork of diverse but shared feminist struggle, allyship, and resistance. And thank you so much to all the women who shared their stories, who trusted us with them. It's been so lovely to work with everyone and to be a part of what for me has been a really supportive, responsive, and empathetic experience. I really hope that this collaborative project of narrating and remembering will shine a more enduring light on the deep imprints of Sri Lankan women in our island home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shruti, for those beautiful words. Thank you for being a part of this team, for carrying the story you did with such grace and such care. And thank you to all of the writers and all of the interviewers who, like you said, were invited into very private homes, private lives, private worlds. And I go back again to the women themselves who trusted us with such vulnerable, emotional, deep parts of their lives and their journeys. And we're so, so thankful to you for that. So just to close out the more formal part of this launch, I'm going to invite an incredible woman. And I just want to say a couple of things that she'll never say unless someone says them about her. Abhi took on the challenge of managing this entire project. She's shown us what grace is in how she handles some very, very difficult and sometimes complicated processes when you're dealing with so many different people. She showed us how to be an unapologetic whole person in your life. Akshit, her son, has been in all of our meetings, but Abhi has never treated that situation or him like an inconvenience or something she needs to be apologetic for. And as a result, she's taught all of us how not to be unapologetic about our whole selves. So I also just want to say that this could not have been done without her absolute attention to detail, sometimes to the point where we're like, how do you remember all of this? But she's really, truly a phenomenal human being. And we are so, so grateful to her as a team and as a community of feminists to have her be one of us and who held this project all together. So Abhi, over to you to speak a little bit.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Shara. Good evening, everyone. It's my great pleasure to say a few words at this occasion. As the project manager of this project, this day is very, very special to me as I'm seeing all the effort and hard work and the dreams we've had to tell these stories with authenticity and in an accessible way have come true today. To be very honest, how we started working on this and how we finished working on this was not at all the same. As change is the only thing that never changes, our ideas and plans had to adapt to the situation and people we were working with, not least the pandemic and carrying out work under lockdown. We were also determined to not sway from our principles as an organization during these challenging times. Despite difficulties to raise funds, find illustrators and writers, we were able to honor our commitment to prioritize hiring those who self-identify as women or queer persons and pay everyone we work with, something we strongly believe at Every Story. I should also say that all these challenges shaped us individually as a team and shaped the project itself in so many positive ways. For me, the opportunity I got to coordinate with nearly 50 people entirely remotely and online, whom I've never met before, to get this work done helped me to grow my skills and knowledge as a manager. Of course, I was able to do this with the support of my incredible team, who made space for each other, support each other all the time. I can't thank you enough for everything you all have done for this project and for me. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank each and everyone who has contributed to this project, and for all the wonderful women who were very humble to spend some time sharing their stories, and most importantly, trusting us with their stories. Moreover, my sincere thanks to Her Excellency Tanya Gongrip, the Ambassador for the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Sri Lanka, for recognizing our work and believing in a small organization like us. This was actually not just a grant for us. This gave us a lot of confidence that we were on the right track. Today, we would not have been here without your support. Thank you everyone for supporting us to see the light at the end of the tunnel. As Sharanya already mentioned, this is just the beginning of this work, and we are hoping to collect and archive many more stories of Sri Lankan women, and hope the launch and the circulation of these 30 stories will help us raise the funds, talent, and resources required to tell hundreds more. Last but not least, I would like to end with one of my favorite quotes from the stories we have collected, as told to us by Anoma Rajkaruna, the filmmaker. I don't believe in changing something overnight. I believe in changing one by one, a little by little, step by step. And this is what we at Every Story are also trying to do. Thank you everyone for all the support you have given us, and we hope you will continue to support us in our work in whatever capacity possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abhi. Before we open it up to everyone, if you have anything you'd like to share, there are just a couple of more women from the team who I don't want to let go unannounced. You did hear from Rachitra and Abhi. Whom you didn't hear from, I'm going to start with Tehani, Ruani, Hansati, and Sakina Mansur Ali, who are here today, but who have moved on to different things to work on, who I don't want to go without recognizing, because while they may not be with Every Story team working permanently at the moment, they were a very important part of this work and did so many little things. I want to also lift up Stefania, who came in to the team, who's probably our newest member, who created the beautiful videos that you saw in a very short time, under a lot of pressure, with a lot of, can you change this? And then she sends that, and then we're like, can you change this other thing? And who did it so beautifully, again, with such grace. I also want to lift up Tanisha, who's been doing all of the behind the scenes admitting and screen sharing, which is sometimes a very nerve-wracking job that isn't always noticed and recognized, and all of the beautiful social media graphics that have been painstakingly edited, perfected, again with a lot of feedback by Minadi, our social media manager. And I'm also going to give a small piece of love to my feminist sister in arms, in life, in love, Vidya. We created this together, and it's such a moment to see it come together. So thank you. Thanks, Vids. So on that note, we're going to just open it up to all of you. If there's anything you'd like to share with us, something that you heard today, if you have questions, we just wanted to open that space up for about 10-15 minutes to give you a chance to let us know what you think. You can put it in the chat, you can unmute yourself and say what you have to say, you can raise your hand, however you wish to do that. So I'm just going to leave that space open now. I can see someone's hand up. I think it's Kumar. You can go ahead. Just need to unmute. Happens all the time.
Yes, I beg your pardon. Yeah, we spend all the time on Zooms, and still I haven't learned. I'm just older, I think. Is it possible for us to get hold of the papers you have accumulated so far?
When you say papers? do you want to?
What the stories that you have collected?
Right. Thanks. That's a great question. So the stories are going to be released from today onto our social media channels. You can see them, the links up on the screen. So the articles will be released on our Medium page, which is Every Story Sri Lanka. And then you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where the graphics and snippets of the stories will be released with links as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're also seeing all of your wonderful comments in the chat, but please feel free to unmute and say how you feel.
We always speak and then become silent, isn't it? Wonderful work, really proud of you. As said, quite often stories go unheard, especially for wonderful women who do a lot of service, but who don't get a platform to talk about. So really happy, and I'm really looking forward for your stories to inspire my students. Well done, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Visakha, and thank you for being one of the incredible women that we're featuring in this particular 30. Auntie Ferial, I can see your hand go up. Please go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I did not intend to speak. I was very keen to see what was happening, but having seen what you presented, I was so happy that I thought I have to say congratulations. I have to come on this and say congratulations, not about the stories that you have collected, more about how you young women have got together and achieved this. Your presentation was beautiful. I'm so happy to hear how you work together and you to show the world that we women can do it. There is nothing that we cannot do if our intentions are right and if we prove that we can. I'm so happy, truly very happy. So I want to say that and say congratulations. Well done, Abhilesha. Wonderful. And may God bless you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, madam.
Thank you so much. Mario, I can see your question in the chat. Yes, in fact, some of the women being featured and the girls being featured in this 30 are stories that have never been told before, that are very much on the margins as well. And many of the women on the wider list are just incredible stories that have gone hidden for so long. So we are putting a lot of effort into reaching out through our networks, asking people, but if any of you also know names of women who you believe we should be interviewing and hearing about, please message us at any time. This list is ever growing and ever being added to. And if you would like to interview them yourselves, we are extremely open to that, because it's always so beautiful when somebody who knows someone so well is able to do that interview. So that's very special. I think on that note, we can wind up this evening. Thank you so much for the beautiful comments that are pouring in through the chat. We are reading all of it and appreciating it deeply. I'm just going to ask Tanisha to share the screen once more with the handles of our social media pages. The stories are going to be rolled out one by one, so you can savor them fully, because they're all so special. We didn't want it to be a flood. It was such a challenge to decide how much, too much, how, when, but we decided one by one they would be released each day. So please keep an eye on our social media channels. And you can also email us at any time. I'm going to put the email into the chat box with any feedback, thought processes, anything that you would like to share with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us this afternoon, evening, night, morning, noon, wherever it is in your time zone. And have a wonderful rest of the week.
you. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done, folks. Bye.
Thank you so much.